Time for another episode of the Golfer's Guide, and this week we're looking at drivers. So I recently posted this photo over here on my social media platforms. If you don't already, do make sure you are following the social media platforms, because I'll post the picture, then it's over to you guys to post your questions, and then I'll answer them for you. Anything that you want to know about the topic of the week will be answered in the Golfer's Guide, so make sure you're following. So straight into it, Ollie Rooney asks, what is the best advice you can give to a high handicapper to hit the driver straight consistently? And IronDad_Sam also asks, consistency like the question above, but alignment on the club face and feet direction. Struggle with the driver as there isn't easy lines on it like an iron. So consistency, obviously, what we want from consistency is getting good strike, getting the club travelling in the right direction, getting the face looking in the right direction, and getting it attacking the golf ball at the right angle. For a high handicapper, one of the main things that I would generally see when I see the faults with driver is that the iron swing and the driver swing are very much the same. We're not seeing that the attack angles are changing, so I'm not seeing the driver being hit upon, I'm seeing it still being chopped down upon, and obviously when you do that, it's not going to be the ideal attack angle for the driver. We want to be hitting up on it, we want to see that we're not glancing it too much, so you know, majoritively most people are slicers, and that feeds in with like the aiming of the feet as well there. What Sam asked, because what a lot of people would do, just grab my driver here, you know, we've got the little guide here that's in line with the middle of the face. We would point that towards the target, then they would see for the right hand golfer that the feet and the body are aiming, you know, some 40-50 yards off line sometimes. So getting those aligned correctly can be a huge thing, because as soon as you align your body open to the target, chances are you're going to be swinging across the golf ball. Now, in terms of getting consistency, it's like everything else. You know, you've got to put out what you get. You got to put in what you get out. Sorry. So you know, hard work, understanding your golf swing as well. There's no other benefit more than actually going to get a lesson with a PGA pro and let them tell you what you are doing with your driver, why you are slicing it, why you are hooking it. You know, find a pro that you can trust, that you can get lessons off me. Even if you're in Australia now, I've signed up to Skillist, so you can come and see me as your coach. But even if it's just that one lesson, knowing what you're doing and having a plan, some drills to get you get it, even standing to it right, attacking it on the right angle, getting your swing, more neutral, so you're not glancing the golf ball too much, and getting that face in a good position would be, ways to get consistent with the driver. So TK Harchie has asked, recently been watching a lot of YouTube and planning on picking up my golf game after a few years hiatus. That's good news to know that we're getting people in it. I don't have any drivers or woods in my bag, but just irons, wedges and a putter. What cheap driver should I go for? So obviously there's lots of ways you can buy drivers nowadays online. There's your golf bidders and things like that, eBay, Amazon. There's ways to pick up a deal. What I would say is that you can still go to your local PGA pro or your local retailer, and they'll have even second-hand clubs, and you'll be able to try them. It doesn't have to be that you're spending £300, £400, £500 on a driver. You could go back maybe 2 years, 3 years in the model line. So let's take Ping, for instance. We've got the Ping at the moment, the G410 drivers that are out. If you went back to the G30, the G models, we've had the G400s, the G410 at the moment. You go back sort of 3 generations, they're still going to be great drivers, and you might pick one of those up for a bargain, like £120, let's say. I think I saw some Ping G drivers the other day at £129, and a fantastic driver. It's got the movable loft on it by changing at the neck. You can't change the weights on the head, but just going back a few years in the catalogue, you're going to be able to get some really good products there that, still have those technological advancements in them, and aren't too out of date and at a good price. So I would suggest try and maybe buy either a second hand if you're looking for really cheap, or looking for a couple of models back to still get a bargain. Tommy Thatcher asks, what's the difference between a stock shaft and a tour shaft? Price mainly, a lot of it. No, in all seriousness, the way shafts are made, basically, it's the purer of the shafts. So you might see that you get the full handcrafted ones nowadays. But it's just the process that they're made on. You tend to get the more blemish-free shafts, as it were, being the tour spec ones. So they would make, let's say, 1,000 shafts and check them, and the top 10% of those would go onto the tour van as the tour grade shafts, because they've got the least inconsistencies in the shafts that have been made. The ones that we get in the shops, generally are, just as good pretty much, but these have just got that sort of higher percentage quality barrier on them. What I would say though is for, your average golfer to go and spend £200-300 sometimes on a tour shaft, you're probably not going to notice the difference. If I were to tape them up and you didn't see the decals on them and didn't know what they were, you wouldn't generally. I've never found anyone who, when going through this process, has said, yeah, that is definitely the tour shaft. I can tell that because of the benefit I'm seeing here. It's going 15 yards longer, and its dispersion's a lot tighter. I don't think your average golfer is going to see a dramatic difference to warrant that huge jump up in cost. For someone who likes spending money on the clubs and really wants the Rolls Royce of everything, so be it. You're paying for what you get. But like I say, for your average golfer, you're not going to see that much difference in them. Graham Day asks, with the limit on head size and face, moment of inertia now having been reached, and sliding weights, draw bias drivers being out for a few years, where do you feel the future of drivers is going? Can manufacturers still claim further, faster and more forgiving when the limits have been reached? Fantastic question that. Where do we see drivers going now? Yes, I think everyone has become a little bit more market savvy, as I would say. We're cottoning on to the marketing ploys of this driver's longer, X amount, yards further, X amount of miles an hour, and everything that we've heard from the manufacturers over the few years. And when we've reached those limits, like you say, and we're not seeing huge gains in testing, it leads to the question of what is actually being improved here? Now, the way I see a lot of it going personally would be sort of a cohesion of the improvement side in terms of technical side and technology, coming together to help you, become a better driver of the golf ball. Anyone in the world, if you offered them any distance, whether it was giving McIlroy 5 more yards to, Joe Average, giving him 10-15 yards, yes, of course, we're going to want that. But also, if you were able to get, some form of statistic from your driver or some form of information that helped you pinpoint, what's happening in your golf swing. We see the likes of Cobra and Ping adding the Arcos system now into their grips to say, what's happening, and getting a little bit more technology data from the golf club, obviously, that we are using on the course. We're not able to set up a TrackMan or a Flight Scope or a GC2 or a GC Quad when we're playing competitions, but you can still have your Arcos on. And that's going to give us, real-time data as to what's actually happening out on the golf course. Obviously, it's not going to be as detailed as a TrackMan Flight Scope, but it can definitely start to highlight what's happening there. So I think, the message that we'll see from manufacturers will be, this driver will help you become more consistent. This driver will help you improve, your fairways in regulation. This driver will help you, hit the middle more often and things like that. I think the message will start to switch now, because I think the distance and get longer is starting to, leave a lot of questions from the consumer. You're sort of tricking us. So I think personally, that's where it'll start to shift towards, how can we make you a better driver of the golf ball by providing you statistics and data from what you're actually doing on the golf course. Jeff Goodchild asks, how do the weights work on a driver? I have the M3. Basically, they slide to whichever part of the driver you want them to. You know, along the trackways, it can be put towards the toe. If you want to hit more of a fade and keep the face open, you put the weight more towards the toe. If you want to draw it, you put it more towards the heel, hit it higher. You put it towards the back of the driver, lower, put it towards the front of the driver. Basically, it's altering flight by putting weight in a different place. It's very much like what they used to do with lead weight, obviously, but now these are just movable. It can make them more forgiving, it can make them less forgiving, and it can aid your ball flight. Try to add some form of correction to what you are doing wrong with the movable weights. Mark Davidson says, I'm a great fan of Callaway and was wondering what driver would work or suit me as a high handicapper off 17 and 10 to fade the ball. Then we also have Harry Lawrence asking a very similar question, in that he is a senior golfer. Is a more lofted driver better than, say, the advantageous 9.5, 10.5 driver? And he does tend to have the slice as well. So yes, I personally, if I was doing a fitting and I got a more senior golfer in, the chances of them walking out with a low lofted driver wouldn't be that high, but it depends obviously on the individual. But what we have to know is that a ball has to have a certain amount of ball speed to stay airborne. As soon as it's not getting up to that ball speed, whatever you launch it on, it will dip out of the air very quickly. So if you've got a low lofted driver and you're not getting the speed because you are a senior, the chances are your ball will be falling from the air very quickly, so you get very flat flight, a lot of run, no carry on it. So yes, getting a little bit more loft will help launch it, get a little bit more carry on the golf ball. Also, what it'll do is limit a bit of that side spin. The reason why you don't slice your lob wedge, anything like you do your driver, is because it's got 60 degrees of loft on it versus 10. When there's 10 degrees of loft on your driver, what becomes more prominent is the side spin. So the axis on the ball tilts and then we start to get more side spin. That's where we start to see more of the shape on it. So if you get something with a little bit more loft on it, all of a sudden that backspin, yes, it might increase and you might lose the odd yard or two, but actually getting it up in the air is going to be a good thing for you anyway, so it will benefit you anyway. But the side spin, the axis tilt of the golf ball, isn't going to be as great, so we're not going to see as much shape on it. You know, one of the drivers that I sold quite a lot of when I was in the pro shop was a Ben Ross, the gold one. I think it was Gold Flex or something it was called, that was, you know, draw biased in a 13 degree head on it with 13 degrees loft on it. You know, the dramatic changes I saw from a lot of seniors at the club who had a driver for maybe 10 years, hadn't changed, they were still in a 9-degree driver and they were flat, not getting anywhere. Come, you know, winter time when the ball shouldn't be going as far, got them in these drivers, got them launching it a little bit, and all of a sudden it transformed their driving game. So I would suggest, you know, more loft and also a lighter shaft. Not having the same shaft, you know, the 65, 70, 60 gram shaft, maybe a 45, a 40, a 50 gram shaft is also going to help you pick up club head speed, because you're going to be able to move it a bit quicker. And again, that's going to help you launch it better, control the ball, and get, you know, ultimately more from your driver. Lenny395 asks, do you drive for accuracy every time, i.e. 85% swing, or do you simply swing out full with driver and then go down to a 3-wood for more consistency? Now, what you would note from a tour player, let's take those as an example, they're not going to hit every single drive full out. What they do is have a stock shot. So it might be that, let's say, even taking it to you as an amateur, Lenny, if your stock shot at 85% has, let's call it 10 yards of slice on it, you know that when you swing at 85%, you just leave that little bit in the tank, the ball generally moves 10 yards from left to right. So that will be your shot that you just use to get into play. Then you get onto a hole where it might be downhill, downwind, no out of bounds, no hazards, massive fairway, and you think, well, when I do swing it at 100%, I now increase to 20 yards of slice, but I do generally carry it 20 yards further, let's say, for instance. And that's very much like the pro. What they will do is have their get-in-play driver with their stock shot that they're just putting it into, you know, moving the ball around the hazards and putting it into the place they want to approach. from in the fairway. And then when there's opportunity, let's say, of driving a green potentially, or is that scenario of downwind or whatever it may be, or whether, you know, they can just let loose a little bit more, then all of a sudden they go to 100% and they've got that extra 20-30 yards in the locker. So personally, I would say, you know, you always want to just leave that little bit in the locker extra. For any scenario, it might be a 7-iron that you just need to get up a little bit higher and carry a water hazard or something. I wouldn't be swinging full out every time. Find, you know, your shape and what generally happens, and then when you need that little bit more distance, or, you know, you need to pump it a bit more, have that in the reserve tank from there. Okay, so 2 questions here in one from No Golf Pro and Matthew T714. No Golf Pro asks, "You the man, Matt. Thank you, I appreciate that. What's your favourite driver to use, and does brand have anything to do with it?" Matt asks, "Which is your favourite driver based on sound, feel and look? Sim, Maverick, Mizuno, Ping, Cobra, etc." So for me, when I would choose a new driver, aesthetics are number one. If I don't like the look of it, I'm not going to play it. If I look down on it and I think it's ugly, the demons in my head straight away, as soon as I hit a bad shot, would be pulling it apart. Oh, it doesn't like the look of that. That looks awful. Oh, it's closed. Is it open? And I would generally just have, you know, loads going on in my mind. So aesthetics are, you know, the number one thing for me. From there, then, what I would do is rely on the fitter to, you know, tailor the flight. In terms of sound, you know, you can change shaft to change the sound and things like that, but I don't like a tinny sort of like that frying pan sound. And feel wise, I've got X-Flex in all my clubs, but I do like to feel the tip being a little bit softer when I'm playing. I don't really like the harsh feeling shaft that feels, you know, really stiff throughout, and in the butt I don't really get much response. I do like to feel a little bit of response from the shaft when I go. Brand wise, it's what, like I say, as long as it's aesthetically pleasing to me to start off with, I'm fine with anything. I've got the Mizuno at the moment. I really like the sort of classic look of that. I like a lot of the Titleist stuff because of, again, the classic look. There's been some drivers in the past that, you know, I don't like the look of, or didn't like the look of, you know, particularly when sort of I think it was M3 and M4 came out. I wasn't the biggest fan of those. I do like the Sim now. I like the look of those. I like the Callaways. I don't think there's anyone really making that much of a, you know, displeasing looking driver nowadays. Obviously, with the research, the market research that goes into it all, you know, they know what they're doing and they know what sells and what works and what people like the look of. So, you know, as long as it looks good to me, from there I'll let the fitter, you know, make it the best possible driver for me, you know, tailor it to my golf swing to get the most out of it, I would say. But I'd probably, with me having the Mizuno at the moment, I'll probably be going down getting another one of those. I would generally say, or a Titleist TS3. I really like the look of those as well. Okay, so another episode of the Golfer's Guide there in the bank, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you got all the information you wanted. If you did ask a question and it featured in the show, I have answered the other ones on the Instagram and the Facebook posts already. If you haven't already, do make sure you are following the social media handles. If you've asked a question, it's got a chance of featuring in the show, and obviously me giving you an answer to it, and if not, I'll answer it on the platforms as well. And remember, do subscribe to the channel as well. Lots of teaching content, lots of Golfer's Guide content, lots of other content for you coming when we're out of this lockdown. So I'm excited to get back out there and start making loads of video. I've got a list as long as my arm that I want to make, so can't wait to be doing that. Thanks for watching this episode. Stay tuned, stay safe, and I'll see you in another Golfer's Guide very soon.